Hi everyone. All right, you've taken your template, you've added your photographs if you're wanting to do that, you've added your pattern paper, you've dealt with the cutouts. Now what do? We have this gorgeous template all filled out. That's exactly the project you want. Now what do? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to create the cut files for the pattern paper, and also I'll teach you what I do with my photos. Okay, so I took the project, and to be honest, I just dumped a bunch of pattern paper in there. I didn't take time to re-add all of my photos and everything. And I'm going to show you how I would do a simple project like this. I want to talk about 3 different sheets on here though before we do it, because I feel like I covered some things that just were a little quick. All right. On this piece of paper here, I decided, here's my 12 by 12 square, I wanted to isolate this mermaid on my printed pattern paper. I'm going to do a whole video after this on if you're dealing with digital paper, okay? But if you're wanting to cut physical pattern paper, and I wanted to isolate that, I'd make a 12 by 12 square. I then took my piece here, and I'll go ahead and do it again for you, okay? So what I had was, this would be white. That's what we started with, right? I'm going to take that mat, I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to go ahead and make it somewhat transparent. Great. Now, this, on the pattern paper, she's up in the corner. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to align it to my far left and align it to the top. Now I'm going to get her in that upper left-hand corner, which is what I wanted. That'll give me room to put a photo down here if I wanted to in my album. So I'm going to select both of those items. I'm going to copy, which is Command C, or Control if you're on a PC, and then Command or Control F. Okay, it doesn't look any different, but now if I come over here and I crop that, it cut that picture out for me, and now when I drag it away, it kept that little piece there. So I now know that's what I'm going to need to cut out of that piece of paper. All right, and you'll notice, let me zoom in, you'll notice that I have this weird little brown line here. That's not in my paper, that's just a function of when I was photographing it and throwing it into Silhouette, and that's okay. Again, I just want a general representation of what I'm doing. I also want to, I explained it in the last video of bonus, but I wanted to go over it again. Again, I just threw a bunch of paper in here. I didn't even really work on designing it. We worked to get pretty colors and patterns in here. I'm not even gonna try to do the cover, so we'll ignore that. So here I worked, I tried to get my pattern paper. These I just threw in because I want to teach you how to create print files. But I also wanted to show you this. Okay? I wanted to isolate this anchor to put it here. So again, I created the 12 by 12 square. I took my white square up here. So this is what my pattern paper exactly would look like on a 12 by 12 sheet. I then took this square, it was white, I made it slightly transparent, lined it up, again selected everything, did a copy on top, and then I did a crop. And when I cropped it, it did that, but it left me this piece so that I can use it later and know what I'm doing. Okay? The other thing I wanted to point out to you and wanted to show you again, because I think I gave it pretty short shrift, was these cut apart sheets. Okay? So I decided on this flap I would put a little flag here, and I would take this little girly right here and I would put her and mat her on top of this flap. Okay? So let's do that together. I'll take it out of here. Okay? First thing I did was I created a 12 by 12 square. I created a 12 by 12 square and I dumped in this pattern. Okay, so if you go to the library, you will see I have this card sheet right here. So I just filled it with the card sheet and there it is. And I want to put this girl on and I want to put this on. Okay, so I decided, again, I have this brown line up the side, but that's okay because on my paper it actually goes edge to edge. So what I normally do with this is I'll use a ruler on the actual paper, or if I'm sitting here now, I look at this. That card should read, oops, what do we have here? Oops. Let me zoom in. This is a kind of an odd, this looks like it's like a 4 by 4, but that's not quite right, so it must be a 375 by 4. So what I decided to do was to take this card and I'm going to adjust these numbers to read 375 by 4. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks pretty good. To make it a little easier to see what I'm doing, let's fill that in white and make it translucent. Okay, now I can kind of line that up so it's on top of my person, and we're going to be cutting that out. I also want to isolate this flag here, and I really want just this flag here, or you could do it with the beach one, it doesn't really matter. Because I have Business Edition or Designer Plus, I can actually go in there, trace by color, and it'll pick up, I can pick up just that white line and get that outer edge and then draw a line across there. Because I am doing all of this with Basic, so I can teach you how to do it if you're free, let me show you how I would isolate that. If you try to, let's try to do a trace, okay? And you select this trace area. Let me show you what's going to happen. Okay? I have to play with this threshold, and it's going to start picking up all those dark colors first. Okay? And see how I can't get a good clear line on it? What happens if I turn on my high pass? Oh, okay, not hideous. Let's just see what happens. Let's trace that. Okay, now you'll see when I trace it, let's take this, and I'm going to show you a little trick because we have to look at that tracing mess, right? But I don't really want to move that paper because I have everything perfectly lined up. So let's go back into the fill on that and watch. You can make that totally transparent. And now I can see what I traced. Okay? That trace is kind of a hot mess because it doesn't connect up here. I have all of this stuff I'd have to get rid of. So what we would have to do is, and to make matters even more fun, it's going to pick up that background. So we can do that, and we can ungroup it. Okay, look at all those pieces. Okay, then I can come in here, and I can get rid of all this stuff at the top and delete it. But see, this is connected. This is just, you can do it, but it's just a lot of cleanup and connecting the dots and cleaning things out. So let's just get rid of that whole trace. I don't think trace in the basic is going to work very well. All right. And let's bring this transparency back. So here's what I would do. Okay. I would come in here on my line style, see my line tools, and I would pick my poly, which is going to let me draw multiple lines. So I'm going to click on that, and you get this little cross line. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make my line color black. Should have done that to begin with. Okay, now I'm going to draw with my poly line. And the reason I did black was so it would be easier to see. A red line is not going to be pretty. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hold my shift key down so I get a straight line. Oh, look. I can't tell if, my guess is I did not photograph that directly square. So let's go ahead and keep it square. Okay? And then you click on your mouse. Whoops. Hold my shift down. You click on the mouse. Then you bring it up to where you want to be. And you come down. And then you come up. And again, I'm going to hold my mouse because I want a straight line. Then I'm going to come across and I'm going to join those. Okay. Now I have something to cut out. And again, it's going to cut that evenly when I cut it on my Picscan mat. And let's go ahead just for consistency and to make it easy for you guys to see and make it transparent. Okay. So I now have all those things that I want to do on my cut apart. And I'm going to do it on my Picscan mat. You guys can Google that, how to use it if you want, or you can fussy cut these pieces. It doesn't matter, but I just wanted to show you this. Again, we select the whole thing. We're going to copy and paste it on top. We're going to come in here, and I'm going to crop. Now I have a card and my flag. Okay? And it'll cut just like that. I also want to back this with black cardstock. So I'm going to pick these pieces. I'm going to go to my offset. It's going to automatically default to an 1/8. I want pointed edges on it, but I really want this to only be a 1/16 of an inch. So let's bring it down to about a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to apply that, and let's fill that in with black. Now I know I have to cut those extra pieces of cardstock as well. Okay, and we're just going to put the banner here. And I'm going to put her and hers on the top here. Okay, so now what am I going to do to prepare my print? Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to come in here and I am going to group all of my papers that are the same. So here I've got a gold stripe. Here I've got a gold stripe. And before I do that, let me tell you what I would do. At this point, I would save this file. I have everything matted just the way I want it. I know what I have to manually cut. I know what I have to cut on my Picscan, and I would save it. Okay? And then once you save it, I'm just going to cancel it because we're playing. Now you can create your cut files. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all my gold stripe and group them together. I'm then going to grab, I think I have several seahorses going on here. Let's see. I have a seahorse here. Hold down my shift key. I got a seahorse here, and I have a seahorse up here. So let's move those over here. Okay. And then we're going to bring all our seahorses together. Okay. And I have some blue stripes. I have one part that's a blue stripe. I have three shell pieces. Boy, must have liked that stuff. So let's kind of group them together here. So you get the idea, okay? So you group each of these together, okay? And well, that's good enough. You get the idea. So I group them all together till you have all your pattern papers grouped together. I then am going to select a grouping. And do you see this square here with the arrow? That's going to place it on my cutting mat. Whoops, let me back up. Okay, I'm going to take those three. I'm sorry, wrong one. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to place them in the center of my mat. Okay, and then this takes me to my mat. Now I can see it. And I place these pieces on my mat so that I can cut them out. Now this, okay? Then I would send those pieces, I would cut them out, and this is a pattern that it doesn't matter to me which way my shells are shaped or facing. They can go either way, but let's talk about stripes. Okay, after I cut those, I'd move them off to a side. And let's go out here and let's grab my gold stripes. Okay, now you'll notice I very specifically want my stripes running a certain way. So if you have a directional pattern, you're going to have to think about how you load your stripes in. If you load your stripes in running vertically, you'll want to put your pieces on just like this. If you load your paper running horizontally, you will need to flip. Well, let me back up. If you run your stripes vertically, you're going to have to take this piece and rotate it so that they all cut vertically. And then you'll flip it, you'll turn it 90 degrees when you actually put it on in your album. If you load your striped paper so that it's running horizontally, you're going to have to take this piece and rotate it. So that's just something to be aware of. All right, and then you can put it, then you send it to the cutter. Then you move it off to the side, and you pick your last piece. And this is why if I need one piece of this striped paper, I just go ahead and cut it. And like I said, except for these pieces, I quite often still will cut my easy rectangular pieces. I really use my cutter for just all these specialty cuts like this, and it makes this kind of matting so much easier. But I still do all of my designing in, I'm going to do a whole bunch of undos here. I still like to plan my entire album this way because I can move my papers around, I can pick where I want things to be, I can move my stripes around, and I love that I have it planned. So I would cut this on my machine, I would cut this piece on my machine, I would cut this, whoops, I want to take that off my dock. I would cut this off my machine, I would cut this piece off of my machine, I would definitely cut, obviously, this one. And these, I'm not a big fussy cutter, so I would do this on my Picscan. Picscan takes some practice, but it's doable. And so I usually mix them, but what I'll do is I build a page. I already know I'm happy with all this paper just the way it is. And I like that I have, and I can just click on this, and it tells me I need to cut a piece that is 2 1/4 by 3. and it allows me to manipulate my size, like if I wanted to make my photo bigger. Obviously you wouldn't stretch it, but then I know I have to change my paper size so that I get perfectly uniform edges all the way around. So that's how I cut my pattern papers. Now let's talk about photographs for a minute. Okay, again, I would pull all my photographs in, but we're just gonna, because I only have 3 here, I'm gonna show you what I do. Okay, I do my photos as print and cuts. So I open my page setup panel. If you have a 12 by 12 printer, you can leave it on 12 by 12. You turn on your registration marks. And when I do this, I actually like to show my cut border and my print border. Okay, now it's going to show me that kind of print border because I have mine hooked up to an 8.5 by 11, but let's just take that out for now. If you have a 12 by 12 printer, you can drop all your photographs in here. And when you go to send it to print, I don't know if it'll do it without being hooked up. Okay, let's collect all those and hit cut. It will cut all of your photographs out for you exactly where you want them to be. Okay? And let me show you 8.5 by 11. And let me show you something else. See this little box down here, print bleed? You want to click that. What does that do? What that does is that gives you the opportunity to it'll take these colors and bleed them slightly past so that when you go to cut, let me show you if we can zoom in a little bit. Do you notice that there's this fine little gray line here and the red line is the cutting line? That gray line means that it's going to print that photograph or anything slightly outside so that when it cuts, you won't have that annoying white border, uneven white border, that old-fashioned sticker look. Okay? Let me show you something else. Let's say you want a 1/4 inch or you want a white border on this photograph. Okay, but you need a finished size of 4 by 5. Here's what I would do. I would take a duplicate of that. I would fill it in with the white. I would then take this. I would do an internal offset for how big you want it to be, and let's say we want 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to move that up. Whoops. I'm going to take that internal offset, and I'm going to put that over my picture. Then I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to center it. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to crop. Okay? And then I'm going to take that picture and that white rectangle and I'm going to align them and center them. I now have a white border around my photograph. Some people like a white border to like show a double mat on their photos. Some don't. I don't tend to do it, but sometimes I do it. Then you're going to take those two and you're going to group them. Now when you bring them over here, you are going to want to make sure if you do the white border, you don't want it to print bleed. Now when you send it, you'll notice I have double cut lines. That's no good. We don't want to do that. So pick the inside one and make it no cut. Oops. I screwed that up. Let's go back to design. Let's break these apart. And you're going to, when you send it to send, You're going to pick the inside one, which is just the photograph. And you're going to do no cut. So now I have, and if that makes you nervous, you're going to move things around, you can go back to design now, collect both of them and group them. Now they'll move together. Okay, so I'll put a white border on that one. And that's how you create a white border. So your final finished picture is still 4 by 6, but you're actually going to get that white border on there. And again, make sure you turn your print bleed off. Okay? Many of us don't have a 12 by 12 printer, so let's make our media size letter size. Okay? And I'm actually going to run it this way. Now, I probably can't get all 3 pictures on here. Yeah, so I would send, and obviously you'd have more than these pictures, but you would then just make sure that you, if you want to, you can show the print border. And it's important when you do print and cut that you keep it within that red line. You want to not ever put anything up here in these hatch marks area. So what you do is then you just send it to your printer. It prints the whole thing out. Then you put it on your mat like this. It's going to print a black square, these 2 registration marks, and it'll cut all your photographs out. So that is how I print all my photographs. I cut all my pattern paper, and then I just have tons of fun assembling my album. Thanks for watching, and now you know how I do mini albums from beginning to end. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope you enjoy making tons of mini albums using some of these techniques. Thank you.